Test, test. Okay, there we go. There we go.
Test.
Okay, so here we go. This is might actually be the first one. Uh, let's come up with some names. I'll be my old, meta. Josh, you could be Negus Josh.
I will just be Josh for now.
You'll just be Josh for now.
Because that was awful. I'm kind of terrified by what you just did.
What? You know
Made
what?
the stupidest nicknames possible.
Hey, I like Meta Jameis. So you're getting a Wii U tomorrow, and for anybody listening, this is kind of a weird big deal because Josh has always been a weird fringe Nintendo fan. He grew up more on the Genesis versus the NES and Super Nintendo. So he kind of always been, you went pretty much Genesis to PlayStation.
Yeah, with a little Super Nintendo in the mix, but it wasn't really anything spectacular.
Not enough that you could be like, the Super Nintendo is truly great, which it was, but
minus the Chrono Trigger, but yes.
Well, and Final Fantasy 4 and 6
only
or 2 and 3.
Yeah, but it only had Chrono Trigger.
Yeah. So, and nothing against Nintendo and the Wii U and all that. It's a fine system, but you're not a big Nintendo fan, it seems like.
No, there's a reason why I don't even know what they call it on the 3DS, the Friend Pass or the Street Pass or whatever the thing is. It says Josh Don't Nintendo or Josh Nintendo or something stupid like that. I don't remember. I made it a while ago.
You're not a huge. I know you don't really care for the Zelda franchise.
I'm not a first-party Nintendo fan.
Right.
What I've been looking into has been some of the more third-party stuff.
It's just, it's kind of blows me away because I'm like, well, they got Bayonetta 2, which could be awesome, could be, what?
They have a nice nice partnership going on with Platinum right now, which I'm kind of interested in.
If it takes off, they're taking the gamble on Bayonetta 2 when, Microsoft and Sony both pass, which is, beyond reason because, granted, I guess Bayonetta probably sold better on the second-hand market, with the used games, but then, people actually buying it brand new because people are like, oh, that game looked interesting, and it's done by the same people who did Devil May Cry, the first one, so maybe it's good, but I'm not going to spend $60
Yeah, $60 on that is a little much.
So, okay, we got your Platinum things, but what else is
it's like, what I ended up buying the other night was I bought The Wonderful 101, a Platinum game, which always looked very interesting to me, even during the E3 demo.
Isn't that like a cross between like a strategy RPG and like Pikmin or something like that?
Something like that, and it also has a bit of the character action thrown into there with how you swap between different characters. I haven't played it yet. I just have the box to go off of. So I'm like, so it seems like Wonderful Red's doing some kind of uppercut, and then Wonderful Green's kind of hitting something with a hammer in a swap mode or in a like weird motion, and then you had to like control all these guys at the same time by drawing on the gamepad. And it looks weird because you're controlling all it's like if you've ever played an MMO and you're doing crowd control, well, this is the opposite. Instead, you are the crowd and you're trying not to be controlled.
It's for my thing, and I don't know if I'd get a Wii U, like pay for it myself, but...
And then the other game I actually got a couple, but the other big Wii U title I got is Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. And the package itself did come with the new Super Mario Brothers Wii U, not the 3D World one, that just came out. And then it came with, I don't understand if it's an expansion pack, but they kept saying it's a second game where it's Luigi. Yeah. It seems more like an expansion
I don't
pack
know because I never paid like a whole lot of attention because the only thing like that I see that the Wii U is like cool for is like, hey, look at all these old Nintendo library you can download.
And $10 for Earthbound. We're finally doing it, guys.
Yeah. Hey, you guys, thank you for everybody on the internet who finally told everybody how awesome Earthbound was, because nobody bought it when it first came. We tried to packaged it with the manual, all this collector stuff.
But that was also a test thing, because there was another Mother series game that came out in America. It was like Star World or Starry Skies or something. Or I forgot exactly what it's called, but it was pretty much a test saying, hey, so will the Mother series do well in America? So they put out a weird title, and it didn't sell so well, so we never got Mother 3, which was the big one that people were wanting.
And then you're also going to find out about, the great and best part about owning a Wii and Wii U is the paraphernalia you're going to have to buy.
Tell me about it. I've already been going through that bullshit. I was
mean,
trying to figure out what worked with what. I was like, oh, so I can get this Wii U Pro controller. Oh, I can't use that because I actually got 3 regular Wii games now. So I was like, okay, I can't use the Wii U Pro controller. So what can I use? The original Wii Pro controller. Oh, Nintendo doesn't make those or sell those anymore, and the closest... not to really locate us anywhere, but closest Wii U Pro controller, like classic one, was out in Roseville.
Oh.
That I could get from GameStop.
They
didn't carry them in Best Buys anymore.
See, you could probably go on Amazon and buy one.
Those were $60.
Well, wow.
And they wanted 20 at GameStop, and it's like, well, I think I'll just suck it up and learn to use the Wii remote. I will be the grumpiest Nintendo owner.
Yeah, you gotta.
I will play it with nothing but a dour look on my face while I'm playing The Last Story in Pandora's Tower.
On top of your bed against the wall because you have 0 room. This is the only way I can do this. Is the least comfortable way to play a Wii game, but it'll work.
I will make this work. I will not pay that much for a stupid controller. And then the other normal Wii game I got is No More Heroes 2.
I thought that came out for the PS3.
No, that
Just
was
the
No More
first one?
Heroes 1. That one never... I guess it didn't sell so well in America, so they never re-released the No More Heroes 2. They just stopped it.
The only difference I know about No More Heroes 2 is they streamline the game, because in No More Heroes...
Okay, I watched not the 2 best friends play, but I watched everybody but Pat play it. So you had Matt, Wooly, and Liam playing it, and I watched them play it start to finish, and I was very intrigued. And playing Killer is Dead, it made me be like, fuck yeah, I really want to play this. This is awesome.
So, I mean, why are you skipping Lollipop Chainsaw?
Because I keep forgetting. It's one of those things where I'm like, man, this is fun. I like these games.
You just want to borrow from me because I'm not playing it anytime soon.
Because I keep forgetting.
I
sit down every time. I'm like, man, what's some old classic games I should get that are like $15-20 each? Things like Yakuza 4 pop into my mind. Then every time I'm like, oh, okay, I'll get this. Then I get home. I'm like, what about Lollipop Chainsaw? You should get Don King's Prize Fighter. Oh, God.
But, well, I guess it's glad you're helping out Nintendo in their falling of grace.
And there's going to be something coming out. It's going to come out, and it's going to be awesome. And it is, and this will make a lot of sense once you hear it. Fire Emblem Cross Shin Megami Tensei.
That makes sense.
And it's coming out for the Wii U. And it's good.
They could use it, and Shin Megami Tensei has made several, strategy RPG games that are all pretty awesome. But Fire Emblem is good. I've played a couple of them.
The 3DS one was pretty good.
Well, my problem is it's just strategy RPGs are kind of like, okay, cool, nice battle system and all that, and it's and then story in between. But I'm like, okay, I'm done with battles taking over for an hour. That's part of the reason why I couldn't get into Final Fantasy Tactics was because it's like, oh, these battles take so long, but I'm like, okay, I'm kind of intrigued with the story and where we're going with this, and I can't do it anymore.
That is also it, because I've played a lot of Final Fantasy games, and Final Fantasy Tactics had by far the best story, I feel. The original Final Fantasy Tactics, it had a phenomenal story, and I played through it on the PlayStation. I don't know how the game still works. I played it through so many times. I have at least easy between multiple playthroughs over 1,000 hours. Then I also played through. That's not including the time I played through the PSP version twice.
Jesus.
And that is even more grind happy because they added in 2 new classes, and I had to get one of the new class, the Black Knight. I had to get that on every character because I am a freak. But they added in it was fun to look at since you had the story from the original, and then you also had included parts which really brought out made more sense of the plot since you had no idea what one of the characters Delita was up to.
Okay. Well, before we get too far off subject, I'm going to bring it back to the Nintendo. So, Nintendo not doing so hot. So, I'd like to take this time right now to come up with some ideas, both retroactively, what they should have done.
One more, it is on topic and it isn't at the same time. Did you hear about that new the old sales projection for the Wii U that was put out in, November?
Supposed to be like, 15 or 20 million?
They wanted to push 9 million units. They said, we're going to push 9 million units for 2014. Then once January rolled around, they said, we're going to be lucky to see 3 million.
Right.
Which is kind of they just dropped 2/3 of it, which makes you think, what? How could they be so optimistic? The holiday sales for it must have just been crushing.
Well, that and, the lack of third-party support. I mean, EA had to turn tails when they're like, oh, we're not going to make any Wii U games.
The quote-unquote unprecedented partnership.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I guess maybe we'll keep those options open, especially. We'll talk about that later.
They'll bust it out soon. EA will pull through Battlefield 5 Wii U exclusive.
We'll talk about that. But okay, so what would you think with their stocks falling and, sales of the Wii U being way below what Nintendo expected? We're going to talk about what they could have done retroactively, meaning before the system launch, leading up to the system launch, and, pretty much before today, and then what they could do moving forward. And one of the big things, and I think a lot of people will agree, was the name Wii U is stupid. They should have, if they would have kept the
people didn't realize that it
was
a new
system,
product.
Right. Well, that's part of the problem. But if they would have kept the little project name for it, which was the Nintendo Revolution, wow, that's cool, that's hip, that's edgy. People are going to be like, Nintendo Revolution, we're going to revolutionize the gaming industry with a small tablet screen to controller. Well, I mean, it
has some cool uses from what I've seen.
Ambitious idea. I mean, Nintendo isn't shy about being ambitious. You can look at the, Nintendo DS for that, or even the 3DS going, well, how about we do 3D without the need of frickin' stupid glasses for people? And it works to an extent.
I will say that, though, the gamepad is a nice touch, but I'm glad that during that quote-unquote unprecedented partnership, EA said, we're not going to make anything unless you have a Pro Controller, which they didn't want to make at first. And I'm glad that they finally caved in and said, we will make a Pro Controller. Well, because I'm going to pick one of those up.
They had to figure something out because, I mean, at least with the Wii, you could always throw in your GameCube controller and it would work for,
and you
a
can't
lot
do
of
that
games.
Anymore.
Well, there's no ports for it.
Yes.
But, so, the name, stupid. And Nintendo, let's be honest, hasn't came out with the greatest names. The Nintendo Entertainment System worked for back in the 80s. The Super Nintendo somehow worked, but pretty, that shouldn't have really worked as well as it did.
Well, I think it sounds better than the Famicom and Super Famicom, at least in America.
Well, I mean, Famicom was Family Console. It makes sense, and it probably sounds different in Japanese, but...
Yeah.
And then the Nintendo 64, Another kind of stupid name, but it worked. And then everything game was blank 64 because it has 64 bits. Back when people still cared about that.
Q in the AVGN in the Jaguar Bit Wars.
Yeah. And then they have then they came out with the GameCube. Now that was a good name. Kind of dumb in itself. Thinking back, it's a cube. Why don't we just call it the GameCube? We have the Game Boy. That kind of worked. How about the GameCube?
But you can't always go with that. Otherwise, in Japan, they would have just called the Xbox Godzilla.
But
it was black and it was shooting green.
It's true. I mean, and it worked. And then the Wii came out, and then they did the whole, we would like to play the Nintendo campaign. And it worked. And then we get the Wii U. And, being a little kid, say you're, between
being
the age of 10...
I remember being a teenager when the Wii came out, and all that came out was, or whenever the Wii was mentioned, was dick jokes.
Yeah.
So it's just kids making more dick jokes.
But, that and, being a kid and the Wii, even the original Wii is still fairly new in the console lifespan. And then, so you got a Wii for Christmas, and all of a sudden the Wii U comes out, and now you got to go to your parents and go, I need to get a Wii U. And they're like, we just got you a Wii. What is this? I mean, why do I have to spend $200 or $300 for a controller?
It's $300. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's $300. That's why people were talking about, hey, how about Nintendo, you made a separate pack without the controller and made it cheaper, but that is a little unfair on that side because...
Well, their whole marketing thing
towards
the controller. Which brings up another thing they could have done was, you know what? It's a nifty idea, and I'll applaud you for trying something different. And from what I've seen, it works and it doesn't work.
It works better than motion controls from everything I've seen.
Wholeheartedly. I mean, motion controls didn't do as well, and Microsoft is feeling the wrath of that. Sony kind of dropped it, and they're like, we'll just push this to the side. Microsoft, I don't know.
Microsoft made the bold step with the Fighter Within. You have dick punching for days.
Yeah, but I think the only game that ever properly worked with the Kinect was Dance Central 3. Because that's
not Steel
the killer.
Battalion.
No, God. But anyways, so they pushed the whole second screen tablet controller thing, which is fine, ambitious, but then they made it super hard to program for, and then everybody's like, and then Nintendo's like, well, you got to do something with it. And you probably shouldn't have done that, because if you didn't do that, then a lot more games could have utilized some more, because even looking at, we'll go with Call of Duty Black Ops 2. The second screen on the controller, nifty idea how it worked. It had two separate screens. One, you can easily just change out your class loadouts instead of having to hit the start button and change your class. Cool. On the fly.
It seems like you're playing on a gigantic Nintendo DS.
Right. Well, no, and...
I'm just saying, that's kind of what it reminds me of. It's like, so I got the TV in front of me and I got the pad right here. It's like playing on a big Nintendo DS.
But, and with Black Ops 2, there's also one that had the map of the level you're on.
Yeah, it's like having the start screen on.
Right.
Just
so
like how when you played Chrono Trigger on the Nintendo DS, you have the start screen on the bottom screen.
It's like, okay, cool, nifty, it works. And now it's like, okay, well, that works. Now everybody's like, well, that's kind of hard to program for because there's a lot of little stuff going on, and we don't want to waste our time because we're...
It also goes back to the old Wii days where something's multi-platform. Then they have all these teams, like Ubisoft has all these teams making these Assassin's Creeds and making all these games, and then there's the Wii team in the corner, which is like 8 people.
Oh yeah, most.
And then the Wii, that was the big thing with the Wii U launch was they're like all these games kind of play really janky. And then Nintendo kept saying, oh, that was just the developers being lazy. And then they said, well, what's going on? There's got to be some sort of pipeline that you guys have going, and it's not working out because not all these developers could possibly be this lazy.
And I think most of the games on the Wii that were multi-platforms, the Wii version was a ported version for the PS2 version. I know that holds true for The Force Unleashed, and I wouldn't be surprised with Madden.
I already knew where you were going before you even said it.
Yeah. So, I mean... okay, so maybe Nintendo needs to kind of work with their partnerships a little better.
Know what I think would have really helped boost sales initially?
Huh.
If they would have had some killer app from the beginning, or at least made some sort of effort, like, I would have bought a Wii U day one if it had, say, Super Smash Bros. The new one, Super Smash Bros. Day one. Or they needed something with a bit more, or something a bit more, I don't even know how to put it, something with a bit more grab, some sort of appeal. Even, like Mario Kart. Mario Kart would have been a great addition for a launch game.
Well, any real, first-party game, even if it was Metroid, would have worked. I mean, if it was Zelda, it would have crushed. I mean, everybody would have got it.
I can understand Zelda coming later, just to put more polish, more time into it, but it's like you throw out Mario Kart out there. I'm not big into Nintendo first-party, but I could go down for some Mario Kart right now.
Mario Kart's just a fun game.
Yeah, yeah. Or throw in some Melee, we'll have a good time.
All right, and I'm saying even like a Metroid would work. That'd be big. Or even,
But there might still be some stigma with Metroid.
Because of the other M?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we don't need to talk about that.
Yeah.
So we got some of the issues where we thought Nintendo could have, did before they launched the Wii U. What do you think they could really do going forward? Because now because what I'm feeling is, we know that there's going to be a Metroid game. We know that Super Smash Brothers, whatever it's called, coming out.
Bring back Star Fox.
Star Fox has a very legit chance of coming forward. Zelda game for sure. But the problem is now with how bad Nintendo's hurting. And they're not hurting terribly. We're not talking about THQ level of pain for Nintendo. But
why will they not bring back Star Fox? But they'll hire Koei, of all people, to make Hyrulean Warriors, which is Dynasty Warriors Zelda, without saying Dynasty Warriors.
Okay, we're back. And so they're making a Dynasty Warriors Zelda game. That's going to be interesting,
to say the least. But I will say one thing. If it might be the best sort of Dynasty Warriors game you'd ever play, it would probably be better than Dynasty Warriors, because that's one thing you can say about Nintendo. They stick to they got a pretty good grasp on their brands. They're not going to let a bad Zelda game come out. They will not let that happen. They
have, but okay.
The
Philips
ever
CDI.
Since the Philips CDI, ever since Zelda got completely it was bad. But we don't talk about that. But ever since that kind of stigma got attached, they will scrap an entire project.
But see, you would think so, but with how bad the Wii's doing, Nintendo is going to have to throw their cards in the game real fast. And there might be I'm going to say it right now. I wouldn't be surprised if we'll call it Zelda U comes out and it's not good. I mean, even people's I guess the Skyward Sword people were on the fence, it's the best, it's the best, it's the worst. And there always will be that when it comes to Zelda, because
and actually we can't just keep saying there's no Zelda on the Wii U, because Wind Waker was brought back.
Yeah, and that helped a lot. Wind Waker HD, and when they say, hey, guess what, you remember the part that most people hate about sailing? Yeah, we made it so it goes faster, so don't worry about that.
But the sailing was fun. What sucked was the Triforce, or finding the Triforce maps. That's the only
Tingle to all this money. Oh yeah,
that was the only Zelda game I ever beat was Wind Waker, and I played through all that bullshitty 12 Triforce quest thing, and I beat it.
I quit after that. I'm I'm not finding all these stupid Triforces.
That was probably the coolest looking Ganondorf.
Yeah, I mean they showed him. He was. I don't think so. But he had no neck.
Fair, but I still liked the cut of his jib.
But that's one thing I'm worried about now is Nintendo is going to have to rush a lot of stuff, because if they want to compete with, we'll move on in a second and won't talk about it, to compete against, let's say, Microsoft now, because they're clearly number 2.
That is a great segue.
It is. Okay, we'll segue into to compete with,
at least Nintendo's. They throw some things into the hat, or they've been throwing their hat into the ring with some things that are going to be coming out soon, like Super Smash Bros. They're trying to get Namco Bandai into it. They're not throwing denial into the ring like Microsoft. What was that about with the Xbox or the director of Microsoft? The director, I don't remember which director, but he said, 60 frames per second isn't a big deal. I don't see why people are complaining about that.
Well, the funny thing is there been doing video comparison with the
PS4 and the Xbox One.
With the Tomb Raider Definitive Edition, but that's all on going through YouTube, and you can't tell the difference. And sometimes even the Xbox One looks kind of better. You're like, oh, the Xbox One looks better, and then you read like the articles and they're like, there's a clear difference, and the PS4 blows it out of the water. It's like, well, okay, I guess, you know. And Microsoft is also coming out with a huge update, which is supposed to boost the GUI, something like
GUI, whatever.
The GUI, to take some of it from the stupid Kinect to, you know, boost some of it so that hopefully it will run better.
Because they couldn't have their online or always online console and then use the Microsoft Cloud servers to pick up some of the slack.
Which probably would have worked fine.
It would have. I'm not saying that it wouldn't have. It's just that's what they were planning on, and then soldiers complained.
Well, that and Sony was all like, "Oh, we'll take everything.
We'll
take everything that people are yelling at you for, and then we'll spin it around and be like, we're not going to do that."
Microsoft had good ideas, and they all backfired because they couldn't get them across.
Well,
and also
Sony's marketing against it was like perfect. They took the criticism and was really like, this writes itself.
I mentioned soldiers before. That was a famous last nail in the coffin.
Oh yeah, you can't, as an American company, you cannot deny your troops. You know,
they can't always have internet support, and yeah.
And, you know, Microsoft or Sony went and spun it around and used it against them. And then you start looking into it, and Sony is starting to encompass more of what Microsoft was trying to do in the first place. I mean, Microsoft even came out and said it that, you know what, the Xbox One, we originally weren't going to have a disk drive on it. It was all going to be internet. And Microsoft is trying to make some strides.
They were the Steam box before it was a Steam box, essentially.
And Microsoft is actually trying to make some good strive because they've came out and said that digital content will be cheaper than the physical content. Which is right. I mean, you know, if I'm not paying for a physical disc, why should I have to pay $60 for it? It's stupid. I mean,
remember when we were all scared that games were going to be $70?
Games have been $70 before, but
but we thought they were going to be $70 after the whole $60 glut that we got used to last generation. After we were spoiled for $50 for a while.
$50. I mean, you got to look at the inflation of the video game prices, and we're just talking about video games coming out new. We're not talking about the retro gaming market and all that. I mean, video game inflation has actually kind of gone down if you account for dollars then to dollars today, because games have been like $50 to $60 forever. Nintendo games were that much. They're a lot were cheaper, like $30 to $40, but then all of a sudden it's been 50-50, and then finally, you know, when they started making consoles that were losing money and they had to go
jump up to 60 last generation.
Yeah, so we had so these companies have
we're on Gen 8 now, right?
Gen 8, Gen 9?
I thought last generation was Gen 7.
Okay, then maybe Gen 8, because I mean, if we want to, we'll do a quick timeline. Odyssey was Gen 1.
I was going to say, quick side note, what the hell do we call the last generation now? Because all we ever did was call it next gen, all the way up till the week these new consoles came out.
Yeah, we can't call it like the current generation. Or I mean, a lot of people are calling it the current generation, and the new consoles the next generation. But I mean,
that's going to have like a weird retroactive kind of name change.
No, I think retroactively we'll probably call it the online generation, because it was pretty much the first consoles that all do online in a way, shape, or form. And yes, Dreamcast did it, and Microsoft kind of came into it, and the Xbox One. And yes, PS2 had an online service for SOCOM, which was
weird. Yeah, but also it wasn't just SOCOM that had it.
Tony Hawk 3.
Okay, you also forgot another big one, another famous flop.
What?
Resident Evil Outbreak.
Oh, yeah. You can't blame me for forgetting that one.
Funny story about that, though. So, a group of hackers, modders, whatever, they actually got Resident Evil Outbreak or servers up and running again, the Japanese version, for the PlayStation 2.
But
it's the same guys who got the Metal Gear Solid 3 online up and running again.
I mean, I'm still on the fence on what I want to get, and I'm probably leaning more to the PS4 just because, you know, what's coming out for the PS4.
Especially wait to find out what is going on with this PS Now.
Well, the PS Now, I don't even think you need a PS4. I mean,
you do. They said that you would because you play or PS3, PS2.
No, I heard that it's a stream.
It's
just a streaming service, and they said that if you have like a high end Bravia TV, you can get it.
I was under the assumption, or it's that, or I'm thinking of the Vita TV.
Maybe it's the Vita TV, but I know for the PS Now, they said that you would be able to play it on high end Bravia TVs, possibly I think on your Vita. Some stuff, your PS3 and your PS4. Because, I mean, it's just, ultimately, it seems like a streaming emulation service for Sony, which is kind of cool. Maybe
especially if it's like an a la carte streaming, like your Netflix, which would be pretty cool for games, depending on how much it is per year.
Yeah, but, I mean, it's going to be a complete separate service.
Oh
for
God,
PlayStation
you know
Network.
it is.
It has
to be honest, I would think they'd be flat out lying to you if they said, "Oh, your PlayStation or networks or your PlayStation Plus service adds this." I would probably guess bullshit on that.
If they did that, if PlayStation Plus put on would encompass the PS Now, they could charge $100 and some odd bucks a year, and it would still be worth. Well, I guess technically, they would be charging $100.
I would be very interested if they did that. What Microsoft would do in return? They might crap themselves.
They would have to. They would have to put a lot of chips in their basket and put a hardcore effort and buy Nintendo to take out Sony to even compete with them if they did that. I mean, and I'm not really a Sony fanboy. I'm actually a Microsoft fanboy when it comes down to it. But even right now, I have to say I'm still on the fence because there's a lot of things, and it's kind of like if I was gonna go out and buy a console tomorrow, I'd honestly buy a PS3. Be like, oh, I got a PS3 and an Xbox 360. But
that's also one of those weird things, too. I went with the PS4, and I also have a Wii U, or it's in the mail, but still, I still seem to identify with the 360 so well. I have I can almost stack my PS3 library to the ceiling, but I still love to play my 360, especially when I get the chance.
You know what I think it is? It's because of the... pretty much, it was the best way to the 360 and Xbox Live was probably the best way to finally find companions when it comes to playing a game. Without having to, split screen and suffer through that, or finding time with a buddy. Hey, guess what? I'm going to buy this game that I like, put it in, find other people who happen to like this game, get together, BS with them while playing a video game. I mean,
it also really helped considering the fact it came with a microphone.
Right. Well, it was just it came with a microphone, so it's like you wanted to talk to these people, you wanted to make friends on there, you wanted to make your list and be like, look at my friends and let's play this game with this person and let's have fun.
All that with a heavy grain of salt. You especially want a mute button.
Oh yeah, because. Communities and
I was just saying, funny story.
Not fun people.
Yeah, the community isn't as much fun as you'd think.
We'll talk about that in a second.
We'll
talk about some of it later when we talk about something different. But
or next week, you never know.
Yeah, or next week. But one of my things, part of the reason why I'm on the fence and where I'm going is just where the game industry is going in a whole. Now, the developers, the community, and the retail will take the three the triangle.
I also want to bring something to the table on this as well. Kickstarter has been doing a really good job lately. There's been some odd kind of stories you've heard, but you've also heard about these people coming and hitting it out of the park, and now you're getting some big names out there. Like, you're getting some of the developers for Final Fantasy through the years, working with people who worked from L.A. Noire to Halo 4 to make a Japanese strategy RPG.
This is what I'm getting at when it comes to it, too, is with that, I mean, where the game industry is, like, everybody, the developers themselves seem like the big box, your EAs, your Activisions, you're the big guys
and your Ubisoft
are so disconnected from the fan base. It's not even funny. And they're like, oh, the fan base just wants shinier graphics. And it's like, no, gameplay always precedes anything else. If you have
it to an extent, it depends on what you're being presented as well.
Okay,
because it's like you look at a Suda 51 game, Suda 51. It's not exactly the most technically great. It's not a technical marvel. It's not. The gameplay sometimes gets downright monotonous, but it's just I don't know what he does. What his take on gaming is just, it's an experience that either you want that experience or you don't.
But I mean, he's just off the wall. He's the David Lynch of video games.
Yeah.
But that's where it's coming into.
Outliers aside.
The with the whole Kickstarter is now you got, programmers and the developers that are passionate about the games they make, people around probably about our age and, a little bit older.
And some older, yeah, like you get people like Keiji Inafune on there.
Right, that are kind of like, you know what, let's bring it back and let's let the people, we'll pitch the idea to the people and they'll fund us. And you know what, people aren't going to want to ever fund anything they don't believe in. I mean, it's just stupid. This game looks stupid. Why would I give them money? Well, if you don't like it, then don't give us money. That's fine. That's why we're doing this. We're getting the people who like it, who will know would get the game, to fund us money so we can make the game better. And that's where part of the problem with what I'm seeing with the gaming industry is not only just Kickstarter, but the whole indie thing is starting to kick off again. And indie games kicked off early in the Xbox Live Arcade early, and then Microsoft, and then Microsoft and Xbox are like, oh, okay, now we're going to charge you a ton of money to do that. And then everybody got mad at them, like, why are you charging all this money? They're like, because you're a gold mine. This is what we have. And that's part of the reason, that's like, where's this game industry going? Are we
This is where I'm, this was stage 2 of what I was bringing up as well, and why I'm going to say Square is probably a company, or Square Enix is probably a company you want to take a look at, because they're coming up with a pretty interesting idea where they're creating their own version of a Kickstarter.
I mean,
they say, those RPGs you always said you wanted, put your money where your mouth is. This is, we're setting it up. We'll have a list of titles, and then you guys choose which one you'd like, and if you can fund it, we will make it.
That's great, and that's kind of, I think a lot of people, and that's probably why
I would be very interested to see if this does well, if Square does go through with it, and it does do well, other companies will pick up this idea and see where we'll go with it.
Well, I mean, Square is kind of in okay, how many times are we going to put out Final Fantasy 13 before people think this is a good game?
And maybe Final Fantasy 10.
And Final Fantasy 10. Well, Final Fantasy 10, I'll say, not a horrible game, but not really a great Final Fantasy
It's getting bent over, right? It's already been bent over. And it'll soon get bent over while we speak with a Final Fantasy X-3 after some stupid book they made where Tidus exploded after coming to life again. Then Yuna brings Sin back to life instead of Tidus, and I'm still kind of pissed about it.
But, and I think indie games are going through a huge resurgence, especially with Steam and, being like, we'll just throw it on Steam and it'll be super cheap and everybody will benefit because guess what? You don't have to have a super powerful computer to run it. You can run it off almost any computer because we didn't put super awesome graphics in it.
Because it looks like if the Super Nintendo was a 32-bit console, it looks like that's what they were going for.
Right. Oh, yeah. Oh my God, dude. Have you played Papers, Please?
I've heard it. I've heard a lot about it.
It's amazing. And you would never think the game where if you boil it down to put it down into a sentence of what the game is a checkpoint simulation game where you play a checkpoint guard and you simulate doing that. So amazing. There's a story into it. There
is a story. Something about also you had to earn money to feed your family.
That's not even like, that's kind of like a point system. There's an actual story to it about overthrowing the government or siding with the government. And then after you do all that, if you want to just play that checkpoint simulator and not do the story, you could play the endless mode and just stamp papers. Hey, let me check you out. And it you know what? And it does everything right when it comes to doing a game. No, it starts you off, lets you know what you're doing, what you have to take care of, and how to do it. And it gradually gets more difficult each day. And it explains to you what you have to do this day, what you have to look out for, how you have to do it, who you're not supposed to let through, who you are supposed to let through. If you suspect something, and eventually you get a point where you get guns, where now you can shoot these people.
I don't know where this happened, or it just ramped up, just the way you explained it. That seems like it escalated quickly to go from stamps to guns.
Well, I mean, there's more to it, but
escalate immediately to gun violence.
And it's just like, wow. And you start playing it and you get immersed. You want to, quickly get as many people through because you need to feed and, heat your family, or you want to let this person through, or you're taking bribes from these people, but you don't want to get caught because it's totally illegal because you're in some communist country anyways.
And now that you had your rant that ran on from like some off the wall rant, we're even on that, and now we're going to play Armchair Executive to go or bring it back to what we were talking about before. And what would you say that AAA companies, the big developers, would have to do to stay in because of conversation state of the video game industry?
I think they would have to. They have to adapt. They're stuck in this old motto, and they're following old systems that aren't working. We live in a day and age. They want to easily blame the used game market. You can only blame so much on it. The used games market is not at fault on why you're not doing well. You're not doing well because, one, we'll take, let's look at Gearbox and Aliens Colonial Marines. You flat out lied to us. You 5
years of development, profits embezzled from that game to side projects like Borderlands.
You put out this amazing trailer and this game looks like awesome. You get 21st Century Fox, you get Ridley Scott, you get James Cameron to go, this is canonical to the Aliens franchise. This happens between Aliens and Alien 3.
Except it was a little retconned.
Yeah,
Hicks lived.
That was dumb in itself. But there's always going to be retconning. I mean, even look at The Force Unleashed. Lucas said it's pretty canonical between Episode 3 and Episode 4. But there was still some retconning, because for a game, you kind of have to do it.
You need a little elbow room.
Right.
But,
don't lie to us. Just don't lie to us. Because it's not going to work. We're going to figure it out. And thank God Aliens Colonial Marines did not have a midnight release, because I would have that game right now.
I thought it did have a midnight release and you didn't go.
No, it didn't have one. I called and it didn't have one. I had it all paid off. Didn't go. Went online next day, looked at the reviews, looked at the gameplay, looked how bad it was, and I literally went and I'm like, I don't want this game. I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't want it.
Or a funny story that is a little off topic, or definitely off topic at this point. I went to that GameStop at the mall, and about 2 weeks ago, they had a massive stack of Aliens Colonial Marines. There had to be at least 25 copies sitting there, and I was like, "So, you guys cleaning that out or something?" They're like, "Yeah, all the GameStops are being asked to ship them back."
Oh,
yeah, they're bringing them home.
Really? You should have bought one for like $5. You're like, can I buy one for $5?
No, it means they're not going to keep a stack of them anymore. They're only going to keep one or two in the store.
That's fine. That's
instead of having all those Colonial Marines taking up all that space, and they're just getting rid of them, which I find hilarious. They really held out.
But I think also developers need to, pay more attention to the fan base. And another big thing is, and this one especially goes to you, Activision, stop churning out Call of Duties yearly. And unfortunately, that's a hard thing to do because I understand, billion-a-year game. Bam. We're going to make profits off this. Bam. But you know what? You probably can make the same amount of profits if you had your team, and it would be a lot cheaper for you. Just make DLC, worthy DLC, put out more maps, even if you go for a 2-year span. Guess what? People will play it. People love Call of Duty.
Maybe fall back on the old expansion pack.
Oh, yeah.
There's something, the expansion pack is still a classy idea.
Like the Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon kind of expansion. That would be that wouldn't.
Hell, just like there, you could even do.
Well, if you want to actually get technical, the last few Call of Duties have been running off the same engine anyway, so they're technically all expansion packs from Modern Warfare 2. Sorry, people, and we both love Call of Duty for what it is. We'll talk about that in a bit, but we like it for what it is. Now, it's still all off the same system, and it's still the same. It's still churned out, and we're all forced to buy it because guess what? Your friends are buying it. If you want to play
it's dumb
with your
fun,
friends,
and if you want to have dumb fun, then you need to get it.
Yeah, and you're going to be paying over $100 a year for it. If you want to factor in, the cost of your, Xbox membership, you're going to be paying almost $200 a year to play Call of Duty.
Which is also an interesting concept that I liked with Battlefield 3, and they're starting to do it with Battlefield 4 as well. Instead of putting it out every year, just span it out like 2-3 years in between, and then just make a service or a cool service with a bunch of expansion packs with a bunch of maps span throughout the years.
Well, it kind of worked with Halo.
You are actually correct.
I mean, for the lesser
it's like, okay, so Call of Duty Ghosts. You got the game, you got Extinction, you got multiplayer.
Yep.
So next year they do an entire new type of co-op. Like, I'm just saying, you paid like the 50, hell, make it like $60 a year. So that season pass, you buy it, and then instead of releasing new Call of Duty next year, they have a new set of like co-op, some more.
So,
maps.
like you're saying, you would want them to have like a subscription service, or like that would be actually kind of useful and worked. Especially, okay, we've got these 3 things. Oh, we'll add, a story mission for a couple story, or like a prequel to this story, or you can learn about those kids'
To be fair, it wouldn't really work with Ghost with this console transition period.
Right.
But I would like to see, instead of a yearly thing, it's like, what can you do to just extend the life system of this?
Right.
It's like, I hate to say it, but pull a play out of the Sega playbook. Just extend the shit out of that lifespan.
Well, I mean, it's Activision.
Just slap a CD attachment to Call of Duty.
It's Activision.
Just shove a 32X into that soldier's face.
Make this thing look unholy. Can you imagine? I want to see if I can find it. Find the old school original Mega Drive Genesis with the little slider for the headphone. Find the CD paraphernalia. Find a 32X and find a Sega channel and just cram it all in there. And be like, look at this monstrosity against man.
Look at what I have done.
Original X. I can't believe we have to say the original Xbox now. Original Xbox. Look at what we have done. We've trumped you, and none of it works right.
As Microsoft will not be outdone and just duct tapes the 3 together.
Look at our unholy system. The Xbox, the original Xbox. I hate that. I hate having to call Microsoft. Y'all dropped the ball with the Xbox One. Call it anything different. I would have taken the Xbox 720.
Did you hear about why they said that, though?
I don't care.
They just did it because they wanted people. So we called the PlayStation 3. Oh, we called it the PlayStation, the PSX, the PS2, PS3, PS4, and then we called the Xbox, Xbox 360, the 360. They wanted to be called the One.
That's
what the whole marketing thing. They're like, maybe when people read
Xbox,
the One,
or
Xbox
people are 720
shorthanding,
doesn't work. They could have called it the 720. Hey, wow, that works.
Or they could have called it the Revolution.
The Xbox Revolution. Note 2. Here's a free one, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, whatever your nether console comes out as, call it the Revolution, and people will eat it up. It's the Revolution.
Then they should have said
Look
Fable
at Prince.
3 for
Look
it at the
at
same
Prince.
time.
He would Prince and the Revolution. Holy crap, man. We ate the shit out of Prince. Give me some more Purple Rain.
I'm sorry. Now I'm just imagining like an
When
Xbox
doves
console
cry.
with a 32X sticking out of it.
Hopefully the show will get big and somebody out there with like awesome hardware knowledge will somehow make a bastard system where they take an Xbox and like somehow get a 32 or a 360 and an Xbox to run together. But I was thinking of a 32X.
I would say that it would be like the Nintoaster kind of thing, but instead you'd have to like put that shit in an oven.
Well, I'm pretty sure people have made it because there's people who've made one where it was a 360 and a PS3 in one system. 2 different operating systems, and I think if you left it on for too long, it would explode. But, there's people who've turned their 360s into laptop computers for some weird reason. People always do stuff like that. Oh, poor Microsoft. We still love you.
So after all that Nintendo questioning, that Microsoft bashing, that Sega Funtime Adventure, what do we have to say about Sony? Other than look out for PS Now. That seems really interesting.
And people don't be surprised if Sony shows its fangs in the next couple years, because I think they're trying to play it all cool and hip. They're trying to go the Apple route of stuff, and look what Apple has done, where it's like, oh, look, we're cool and hip, and guess what? We screwed you over. Everything we've known to be cool and hip for that helped get us big, like to Steve Jobs and all of our planning, not gonna happen anymore, and you're screwed. But I mean, Sony's been around in the game for a long time, and I mean, Sony and Microsoft, if the gaming industry just imploded tomorrow, they're both gonna be fine. We know it. Microsoft still has Windows. Sony still makes televisions.
And they have Sony Pictures.
And Sony Pictures and Sony Walkman. People still buy that, right?
That's a thing.
Microsoft Zunes.
Speaking of Microsoft continuing on despite failure.
So, go ahead.
My last thing is, so it's probably not going to happen at this point, but what would happen if Microsoft did sell Xbox like they said they might?
Then
keep in mind the guy who said he wanted to also helped make the N-Gage.
Oh yeah, well, it would come down to a bidding war between pretty much Nintendo and Sony.
I'll throw this out there. Samsung.
You know what?
They're very strong, and they have a very similar background to Sony.
Or even crazier if Apple did it. Apple wants to get into that market. They're trying to. I mean, or
I think
Google
honestly,
get into that market. Well, we should say that Google's selling off their smartphone services to, not their service, but their smartphone industry to Motorola. So
I thought that with Apple, I thought at most they try and go like the NVIDIA Shield kind of route and make something that like makes their mobile games, but I didn't really think they wanted to get into the actual like consoles.
$multi-billion a year business, so you kind of want to.
But also, you had to remember they lost money for every 360 sold. It was like $100 for every 360 sold.
That's why part of the reason why games cost more because they had to sell their license to the publishers. They're like, hey, we're losing money on these systems, so we're gonna make it up in some way, shape, or form. So we're gonna charge you more for the license, and you're gonna charge more to the consumer, but we're making up this shape or form. Oh, I lost sound for a second. But oh man, gaming industry. I don't know where it's going. It's got room to explode and go upwards, but it's got room to explode and just die.
Which is also where things. So, other thing with gaming, sorry, I was collecting my thoughts. Other thing with games or the games industry now is there always seems to be a weird trend going on where 360 came out, the trend was, or Xbox came out, the trend was Halo. Xbox 360 came out, everybody wanted to make a Gears clone. Hell, even Harry Potter, the 7th movie game, was a Gears of War game. Except you took cover behind like magical desks and shot your wand over things at a bunch of pouring in bad guys, which I imagine come through holes like the locusts. But
and when you want to use your grenade, it's on a chain, and you can stick it up their butts, the Dementor's butt,
and then they just float.
The Dementors, not the Dementors.
But so I think I hope. Did you ever want to play The Last of Us?
Yes, I'm
just
in my head, and before the Last of Us and Beyond Two Souls kind of get jumbled in my head. I know. I have to take a second to remember which one is the good one. At the same time.
Yeah. So want to play The Last of Us?
Yes.
Well, you get to play clones of it coming or probably come sometime next year.
Was it The Last of Us? Even
That's
though it was created by Naughty Dog, still a clone of Uncharted.
No,
really,
it is. It has some similarities, but it focuses more on. It's like more action stealth game.
Oh, so
it's not. It's less Metal Gear Solid than you'd think. Before you even mentioned that, it's nothing like Metal Gear Solid. It's like imagine controlling like a somewhat Metal Gear Solid game with. Actually, there's a lot of similar. It's obviously on the same engine of Uncharted. There's a lot of similarities where you just sneak up and like do stealth takedowns, and then you have to like make sound to make the zombies look around, and all the zombies have different rules.
So it's kind of more like Splinter Cell.
I've never really played that much Splinter Cell, to be honest, but it's a very interesting idea, and this is like I said. I'm glad that you wanted to play it, especially after it won so many awards, because soon you're going to probably see a bunch of companies trying to bite off The Last of Us.
Oh, there's always, whatever game you look at Elder Scrolls took off for a bit, and then you got, what is it, Beyond Two Worlds or something like
Beyond Two Worlds? What are you talking about?
Isn't there, or Two Worlds or Two Worlds.
Oh! Yeah. We don't talk about Two Worlds in this house. It's your house, but we don't talk about Two Worlds here.
But that's, there's always, Halo came out, and then there's a bunch of Halo clones, and Call of Duty clones, and Grand Theft Auto clones.
No, it was a very interesting, or I said that, but no, it was a very interesting development on that front.
What?
Capcom said it. They said, for Resident Evil 7, we're looking into The Last of Us.
Well, how about they stop making interactive zombie movies and actually put together a Resident Evil game, and I'll start to believe you.
You know what the best thing about the shameful amount of hours on Resident Evil 6. I will say that
the best thing about the last few Resident Evil games are the Mercenaries.
I was going to also say the Mercenaries. I put in more time on the Mercenaries than the actual games themselves.
Everybody does.
I beat the games on the normal difficulty. Then I unlocked all the infinite weapons, and then I played the Mercenaries until I could buy all of them. Then I just beat the game on no hope diffiency.
Remember all the cool stuff about Resident Evil 4? And remember how none of that existed in Resident Evil 5?
Instead you got... Oh, we're totally not doing racism until you go to, like, Zulu tribe world where there's a bunch of black people wearing skirts throwing spears at you with giant like
The
masks.
Ooga Booga Man, Josh. You can say it.
I tried not to say it.
The Ooga Booga Man. It's not racist. Josh called the little Lego Islander guys Ooga Booga Man when he was a child.
I was 6 years old.
The Ooga Booga Man.
That was almost 20 years ago.
And I still always made you be a, screw you, I'm going to be the Indiana Jones explorer, guys, with guns. You get spears and mask and shields.
Oh, yeah. So I had to settle with the Ooga Booga guys, and you got Fernando Cortez.
Yup.
Fuck that.
Oh.
But, yeah, Capcom did a pretty fun announcement with that, where they said, oh, we're totally looking into The Last of Us kind of gameplay for the next Resident Evil, which is also where they made the weirdest announcement, where they said, we totally know what our audience for Resident Evil is. We know who they are. They're people who are in their 20s, their mid to late 20s, till their early 40s. The people who really enjoyed the original Resident Evils. But our market research told us people stop playing games in their late 40s to early 50s, so we need to attract a new audience. So they're going for the late teens, early 20s. Which is also why, funny enough, they're looking into making Resident Evil clothes for, like, clotheslines for Resident Evil.
The zombie apocalypse clothesline. Capcom is getting on that fad at the very end.
Have you seen Resident Evil 6? They were trying so hard to sell you Leon's jacket.
Oh.
They put in so much detail on that cool guy jacket.
Who was the other guy in Resident Evil 6?
There was two other guys.
No, I know, but who was the other guy? You know, I know Chris was in it.
Yeah, Chris Redfield. And then he had his buddy Pierce Nivens, who was the only one. So Leon Kennedy had his sidekick lady, Jake Mueller.
Jake.
Who was Wesker's son, had Sherry Birkin.
Yeah. Who is Leon?
Sherry was my favorite character in that whole game. You can shut up.
In Resident Evil 2?
6.
Oh. I'm like, wait,
Sherry Birkin was awesome, especially in the Mercenaries. She had more healing items than anybody else, and she had the Desert Eagle Magnum. And a 3-round burst pistol.
I always thought it was Ada for some reason, but
she wasn't too.
Who?
Ada Wong was in Resident Evil 2.
I know, but I'm talking about Resident Evil 6.
Ada was in Resident Evil 6. There
know.
was 4 campaigns. And she was a hidden secret campaign. You had to beat all the other campaigns to unlock her.
I forgot what the whole deal with Ada Wong was anyway.
She is a freelance agent. She doesn't work for Umbrella. She just freelances. So whoever hires her, and she is totally Leon's waifu.
Okay, let's stop for a second. Umbrella, multi-billion-dollar corporation. We're not going to go about the whole stupid downfall of somehow their stocks went down and Umbrella folded.
Until Resident Evil 6, when there was Neo Umbrella.
But still, multi-billion-dollar corporation. Why the hell are they hiring freelancers?
Also,
why?
It's like asking why Colonel Sanders was the head of Neo Umbrella.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't even think Resident Evil 4 was supposed to be a Resident Evil game, or they were trying to reboot it somewhere.
That's actually a funny story, because there was two Resident Evil 4s that came out before, or that were being made before the Resident Evil 4 we know now, and they became 2 separate games. One Resident Evil 4 ended up becoming Devil May Cry.
Okay.
It's like, notice all the puzzles in Devil May Cry, notice the castle, notice the style, notice the pretty much fixed camera angles. Yeah. Very Resident Evil 2, or it has a very Resident Evil-esque feel. Go back, look it up. And then the other one is a game called The Haunting Grounds, which it came out as The Haunting Grounds, but it has the same fixed camera angles. You'd have no way to really attack. They of course probably had guns in it, but it wasn't supposed to be very actiony. It was pretty much like playing. It looked like you were just going to be playing the old classic Resident Evil games with a bit more camera movement.
Tower?
Yes, like that. And The Haunting Grounds, they ended up switching it out. That's why you'll notice, if you actually look at it, the girl you play as in The Haunting Grounds, she is Ashley from Resident Evil 4. Just with a different hairstyle. They reused assets. They reused character models.
Bitch dumpster. Thank you, Mike Jones. We'll always remember
The
that.
bitch button. Unless you had the armor.
So we should probably start wrapping it up here. So I think this is a good first show. We'll figure out where to go from here. Any closing thoughts? Not clothing thoughts.
Damn you, Capcom. I don't want your sweet, cool guy jackets. Closing thoughts. The video game industry may be fucked.
Yeah,
This just in.
That's what we'll go with the whole show. The video game industry might be fucked. Good night.